Everyone, welcome to the first ever virtual meeting of the UW Board of Regents. Glad we have this opportunity to get together, and I hope everyone is doing well. These are very challenging times, and it's important that we can all find innovative new ways to maintain our connections. In today's agenda, we are primarily focusing on actionable business items that require the approval of this board, and we have many. Instead of breaking into committees, all business will be conducted by the full board. I expect we will be complete with most of our open session work by about noon before moving into a closed session. Given the number of people on the conference call, I want to start off with a few reminders to help our meeting go smoothly. First, I encourage everyone to mute your microphones or your phones while others are speaking to help us cut down on extra background noise. Also, please refrain from putting us on hold because that often triggers background music. If you want to be acknowledged to engage in the discussion, please raise your hand. And remember to identify yourself when making your comments or asking questions. And finally, I would ask any presenters or staff to please wait to be called on before speaking. With that, do we have any questions from attendees? Hearing none.
Usually you ask about anybody that has to recuse from any one of the meetings, and I have one, item number 12. I will recuse from discussing that.
Thank you, Regent. I will call for recusals in just a moment, but I'll have Jess note that now.
All right.
If there are no other questions, Madam Clerk, please call our virtual roll.
Regent President Peterson.
Here.
Regent Vice President Greavy.
Here.
Regent Atwell. Regent Atwell.
His chair is here.
Regent Bechtel. Regent Colón.
Here.
Regent Delgado.
Here.
Regent Hall.
Here.
Regent Jones. Regent Klein.
Here.
Regent Levzo.
Here.
Regent Manydeeds.
Here.
Regent Mueller.
Here.
Regent Peterson.
Here.
Regent Plant.
Here.
Regent Stanford Taylor.
Here.
Regent Peterman. Regent Walsh.
Here.
Regent Woodmansee.
Here.
Regent Atwell. Regent Bechtel. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we get started with today's agenda, it's my honor and pleasure to introduce our newest regent, Héctor Colón, Milwaukee.
Thank you.
Héctor is the president and CEO of Lutheran Social Services of Wisconsin and Upper Michigan. He previously served as executive director of the Milwaukee County Department of Health and Human Services, where he had led several countywide initiatives, including efforts to reform the juvenile justice system and chronic homelessness, transform mental health care, and eliminate a 30-year wait list for disability services. As a former member of the U.S. national boxing team, Héctor won 7 national titles and competed in the 1992 Olympic trials. Today, he serves as an independent director on the board of USA Boxing. Welcome, Héctor. Would you like to say a few words to your fellow board members and chancellors?
Sure. First, it's truly an honor to be able to serve at an institution that had a major impact on my life. I'm very humbled and honored to have received this appointment from our governor, and also honored and humbled to receive many calls from you all as I join you in this important work. There's a lot to learn. I look forward to accelerate my learning. I wish I could meet with you all to accelerate my learning and meet with the chancellors across the state. But I just want to let you know that I'm very excited about this opportunity, and I look forward to making contributions again to a great institution that we have in our state. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Welcome, Hector. We certainly look forward to working with you. I also want to acknowledge that this may be the last board meeting for Regents Janice Mueller, Jason Plant, and Tori Tiedemann. It's been an absolute privilege to work with each of you. You've brought valuable experience and insights to our discussions over the years, and the UW system is a far better place because of that. I thank you for your dedicated service and, more importantly, your friendship. We will formally recognize your contributions with resolutions of appreciation and all those whereases at a future meeting. President Cross, good morning. I believe you have an introduction for us as well. I'll turn the floor to you. President Cross, you may be on mute.
I was. Good morning. It is my pleasure to introduce Catherine Frank, the new chancellor at UW Stout. Chancellor Frank, who started on March 1st, comes to us from Central Washington University in Ellensburg, Washington, where she served as Vice President of Academic Innovation and Professor of English. She was previously the Provost and Vice President of Academic and Student Life at Central Washington. Earlier in her career, she held leadership positions at Northern Kentucky University, Indiana University, East, and Colorado State University at Pueblo. She holds a PhD and a master's degree from the University of Washington and a Bachelor of Arts from Bates College, all in English. Catherine is making history in this new role. She's Stout's 8th chancellor, but she is their first woman to lead the university. Personally, I'm especially pleased to see a woman at the helm of one of the best polytechnics in the country. Congratulations and welcome, Chancellor Frank. We all look forward to working with you and, of course, getting to know you better. Would you like to say a few words, Catherine?
Absolutely. Thank you all. It's an absolute honor to be able to serve in this position. I will say it's not the first 4 weeks that I anticipated when I imagined this role, but what it has shown me is that I work with an absolutely exceptional team here with extremely dedicated faculty, staff, and remarkable students. They have just done a tremendous job in not missing a beat as we didn't pause. We went directly out of spring break into alternative instructional delivery here at Stout and converted 57% of our classes to alternative delivery within that spring break term. And I just couldn't be more amazed with what this campus has done and shown during this time. And so thank you all for the opportunity to serve. And I look forward to continuing through this period and beyond and celebrating what Stout is all about. So it's a privilege to be here.
Thank you, Chancellor, and welcome. Unfortunately, we didn't anticipate this either. So thank you. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Provost Patrick Guilfoyle for his service as interim chancellor during the search and transition process. UW Stout has been and will be in good hands. Back to you. Thanks, Patrick. Back to you, President Peterson.
So welcome again to our new colleagues. I know I speak for all members of the board in saying we look forward to meeting you in person and getting to know you all better in the days ahead. As we consider items on today's agenda, are there board members who wish to declare any conflicts of interest regarding today's open session? We've heard from Regent Delgado, who will recuse himself from item 12, the UW Milwaukee contract with Wisconsin Electric Power Company. Are there other regents that wish to declare recusals this morning? Regent Klein, following directions,
Yes.
raising her hand.
Item 14, the Janssen clinical trial, please. I'd like to be recused.
Thank you, Regent Klein. Other regents? Regent Jones, are you out there? Regent Jones may be joining us in progress. I believe he will also recuse himself from item 14. Okay, Jess, if you could make those notations, we'll move forward. Certainly the front and center topic before all of us is the COVID-19 pandemic. We're living in uncertain and unprecedented times. It has turned all of our world sideways, and that includes the university system. To provide an update on how the UW system is responding to these enormous challenges and what we're planning going forward, I'm going to turn the floor to President Cross for his update. Right.
Thank you, Regent President Peterson. I'm grateful to have the opportunity for us to come together today, albeit in an unconventional manner. At a time when physical separation is the order of the day, we all need connections more now than ever, even if they are virtual. These are extraordinary times. No one needs to tell you that. We each have our own ways of dealing with anxiety and fear and keeping them in order. We all have enormous gratitude for those on the front lines of this crisis, the healthcare providers, the emergency personnel, and so many others who are just literally putting their own lives at risk to help all of us. An immediate concern for all of us at this time is our UW family, our students, our faculty and staff, our colleagues, our communities. Individually and collectively, we're facing enormous pressures and challenges as a result of the pandemic. As we lead the UW system and our institutions through these unprecedented times, we will each face difficult decisions. Those decisions are necessary to ensure the system's commitment to serving every corner of this state, whether that is students who learn from us, faculty and staff who directly serve those students, or our neighbors who benefit from our impact on local communities and the economy. The UW system will continue to search for truth and work to improve the human condition, especially now. We are here to serve. That said, I recognize the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic are far-reaching and touch every aspect of our institutions, but it will not impact our ability to live out the Wisconsin idea. As you know, we have been strategically planning for enrollment and financial challenges through 2026. We'd hope to incrementally and thoughtfully make changes to our institutions and our system in response to those changing demographics, and projected financial conditions. Obviously, much of that has changed. Now we may have to move more quickly to adjust to our dramatically changing environment. This morning, I would like to address some of what we're doing in the UW system to keep moving forward, what we have already done, and what we're planning to do. So I have several main areas or topics that I would like to address: teaching and learning, budget and finances, federal and state actions, and finally, what's next? First, to our students, faculty, and staff who are at the core of who we are and what we do, teaching and learning. Thank you for your resilience, your persistence, and your commitment. I think you heard Catherine describe what her campus is doing. I've received numerous notes from families complimenting and thanking us, not for me, but for you and the work you've done. It has been our highest priority to continue to provide our students with the University of Wisconsin education they want and need, while also doing everything possible to keep our students, faculty, staff, and colleagues healthy and safe. We're now doing many things differently, but the University of Wisconsin system institutions remain open. I've been enormously gratified and proud of the work being done by so many people at all of our institutions and at the system level just to make this possible. While all of our institutions have offered online instruction for quite some time, to move all instruction to alternative methods in such a short time has been extraordinarily ambitious and challenging. Not exactly how most of us would have expected to spend our spring breaks. With classes now starting to resume after spring break, Students will be engaging with their professors and other teaching and support staff, as well as each other, in new ways. Will there be bumps? Of course. Do we know how it will all turn out? Of course not. But I'm confident that we have the right people, personal commitment to make this successful. I should note, it is especially imperative that we provide all necessary support to enable students who have been planning to graduate at the end of this semester the opportunity and means to do just that. Faculty have pledged to make that happen. Impressive. To further keep our people healthy and safe, we've suspended current study abroad programs. We have recalled students to the United States. We've canceled athletic travel and all non-essential university travel. Our employees, whenever possible, are now working remotely from home. So let me repeat, we might be doing things differently, but the University of Wisconsin system institutions remain open. Second, budget and finances. The cost of COVID-19, the costs are just starting to come in. And one of the few things we know for sure is that the full cost will not be known for some time. We will continue to track these unbudgeted costs to keep our shared mission of providing every student the opportunity to attend our exceptional campuses. That said, our initial analysis indicates that the financial impact of this pandemic is significantly greater than anything I've seen in my 42 years in higher education. Obviously, COVID-19 is directly impacting current housing, dining, and other auxiliary operations. It is also impacting research and other associated services. It is likely to significantly reduce summer revenues. It will also likely impact the 2021 academic year beginning this fall. Our decision to transition our teaching platforms to alternative delivery methods, largely online, was a necessary step. As a result, we will be providing prorated refunds to students and families for the funds they would otherwise have paid for room and board for the remainder of spring semester. We recognize, however, this presents a significant financial cost to all of us. We are estimating the refunded fees alone could reach $78 million across the system. Yes, it was still the right thing to do, but it does have serious consequences. Even before the current emergency, all of our campuses were working tirelessly to increase our enrollment numbers to deal with demographic challenges. It was urgent before, it's even more so now. I know all of the chancellors will continue to aggressively work with their recruiting teams and advance their retention efforts aggressively. Third point, on the federal front, we have been in close and frequent contact with members of our Wisconsin delegation, as well as members of the national organizations in which we are members, keeping them apprised of what we're doing and the rapidly changing and growing impact of the pandemic on our students, our operations, and of course our future. Along with our chancellors and their staffs, we are also keeping them informed of the work we're doing to respond to COVID-19 and the urgent need for our students and institutions to receive relief in an emergency supplemental funding bill. Last week, a third COVID-19 bill was passed by Congress and signed by the President. It includes $30.75 billion in the Education Stabilization Fund to provide emergency support for local school systems and higher education institutions to continue to provide educational services to students and to support the ongoing functionality of school districts and institutions of higher education. Based on data provided by our national higher education organizations, we estimate this federal support will provide about $47 million in emergency grants for our students and $47 million in institutional support, about $94 million altogether. As these funds are distributed, it will be a powerful down payment to help the university's most immediate challenges and needs. We are very appreciative of the federal assistance, as well as several important areas of regulatory relief that have been provided. I want to express my immense gratitude to our UW system colleagues, the higher education community at large, and Wisconsin's congressional delegation for recognizing the need that we have and going to work for our students, our faculty, staff, and of course our institutions within the state. On the state front, we have submitted a preliminary request for state assistance. The request includes allocations to provide IT support for the move to alternative delivery methods to fulfill our mission, student support related both to behavioral health and practicum completion, and institutional aid that will help stabilize our campuses. We will continue to monitor and work with our partners at the state level to ensure our students have the best possible outcomes in this new environment. We should remember, however, that we will continue to face lost revenues and increased costs at our campuses. Those numbers continue to grow day by day. We anticipate that there will be the need for additional supplemental legislation, and we'll continue to analyze our system needs and work with our federal and state colleagues to support higher education. So I want to pause here just a moment. This economic hit is not just impacting universities, it's impacting every family in this country. However, one of our institutions, each one of them, are a key economic stabilizing force in our respective communities. Whether in Eau Claire, Green Bay, La Crosse, Madison, Menominee, Milwaukee, Oshkosh, Parkside, Platteville, River Falls, Stevens Point, Superior, or Whitewater. We are a major employer in every community and overall one of the largest employers in the state. Stabilizing the university helps to stabilize the economy in each of these communities. Further, we are critically important to the economic restart. But once the period of self-isolation ends, which it'll do, and to protecting our future. To do so, we will need continued support from our federal allies, state allies, and of course, our private partners. So what's next? Well, the truth is we don't know what's next, and I don't think very many folks do. The past is, in this case, not a very good predictor of the future. We're living in an evolving time with many gray areas. That doesn't mean we shouldn't start planning for what could be next. Our planning discussions have focused on 3 separate timeframes and an array of questions, most of them without answers. Broadly, during the first timeframe, which is from the present to June 1st, we are collecting and analyzing the costs directly connected to the virus. We are working hard to make sure students who are scheduled to graduate in May will be able to do so. We are communicating with our federal and state officials to help them understand the impact and importance of the university in helping the state and the country emerge from this pandemic. We will be assessing and evaluating predictors as indicators of future challenges, such broad indicators as the economic situation, the progression of the virus, application activity within and without or outside of our system, and feedback information from current students. We will be developing plans and preparing for a variety of potential challenges for the summer timeframe. We will be assessing the financial impact and condition of each campus. We will begin the process of scenario planning for the fall semester based on an array of assumptions informed by the indicators, which of course continue to change and will continue to change over the next 60 days. During the second period or time frame from June 1st to roughly the middle of August, we will have developed scenario plans based on the best information available. We're hoping to have that information assembled by July the 1st. During the third period, after classes have started, We will look to make adjustments and respond to new information and data as it is made known. It is important to remember that, well, we're all in this together, whether we like it or not. And that means the UW system, its institutions, and its people are joining in efforts to get Wisconsin through this emergency. This is our state. These are our communities. It's in a whole new interpretation of the wide Wisconsin idea. We're offering our resources and our expertise to assist wherever possible. UW System Administration and all of our institutions are working with emergency operations centers both locally and statewide to provide whatever assistance we can during this crisis. Residence halls and other facilities at many of our campuses may be made available to use as potential hospital overflow rooms or to provide rooms for medical personnel who cannot return home at this time. UW-Madison School of Pharmacy, for one, is stepping up to help produce hand sanitizers for UW Health. UW-Milwaukee has joined a special task force. They call it the Milwaukee Mask Force to make reusable medical-grade respirator masks. Our institutions are donating available personnel protective equipment, PPE, to area healthcare workers, helping to create more face shields and donating supplies to make thousands of COVID-19 test kits. We're assisting in other ways as well. Education students at Oshkosh, for example, are offering free online tutoring for K-12 students now learning at home. Students at some other campuses are providing childcare for health workers who are away from their families. And of course, our UW researchers are doing what they're so well known for, applying their expertise to help find solutions to our world's largest problem, in this case, working to develop vital treatments and vaccines for COVID-19. This, of course, is just a very small sampling of the things we're doing. I'm very proud of how we've stepped up to do our part in ways both big and small. Of course, that is the Wisconsin idea in action. A special note to our students: you are and will continue to be our most important order of business. You are our future. And we want nothing more than to have you succeed and thrive. Despite these very challenging times, we remain committed to helping you do that. And to our amazing faculty and staff, you've responded so tremendously. I'm almost at a loss of words. Your can-do attitude and your commitment, amazing commitment to carry on in support of our students, all of those are just truly magnificent, amazing. To close, let me just say, be safe to everyone. Be kind, be patient, stay engaged. We will get through this and we'll be a better university for it. Thank you. President Peterson.
Thank you, President Cross. I'd like to open my president's report by extending my sincere thanks and that of the full board to our system leadership, our chancellors, provosts, chief budget officers, faculty, staff, and students for their extraordinary support, understanding, and compassion at this highly unorthodox time. Only a month ago, the circumstances we find ourselves in today would have been unthinkable. I'm afraid it's going to remain a bit rocky before it gets better. Perhaps that's the biggest understatement I could say today. But what sustains me is my belief in our shared humanity, our willingness to adapt, and our ability to work together. Amid all the truly distressing stories that seem to bombard us regularly, I find hope in how our faculty, staff, and students are pivoting on extremely short notice to have their classes delivered by alternative means. I salute all those who have helped to make this happen, allowing us to continue in our primary mission to educate students. I also want to commend the above and beyond work of so many others who continue to support the university's work: the custodial staff, food service workers, first responders, and a long list of others. Thank you. It is through this shared commitment that we will get through this, and I believe emerge even stronger as a people and as a university system. To our students, our hearts go out to you. This is not how your university experience is supposed to go. We appreciate your adaptability and your understanding, and I hope, just like your classes and this meeting, you can continue to maintain strong connections with your friends and classmates, your professors, and your UW communities through alternative means until we can all meet face-to-face again. To the class of 2020, you will have heard that the traditional commencement ceremonies have been suspended, at least for the time being. That was a very difficult decision because we know how hard you've been working to reach that apex moment and how much you and your families were looking forward to it. However, we believe it is the right decision given these circumstances. I know each and every UW campus is working to come up with either rescheduled ceremonies or other ways to mark this important celebration that you have certainly earned and deserved. We will figure this out. One thing I'm certain about is how important each of our approximately 36,000 graduates each year are to the state of Wisconsin and beyond, and never more so than now. We need you. So early congratulations and thank you. On behalf of this board, I'd also like to offer special recognition at this time to student Regent Tori Tiedemann, who will graduate this spring from uw-madison. Congratulations, Tori. Before turning to other updates, I'd like to say something as both a board member and also as a business person. The University of Wisconsin system is one of the largest state employers with about 40,000 employees and 170,000 students. We are a unique and powerful economic engine for the state with a $24 billion annual economic impact on the Wisconsin economy. To keep the state's businesses and communities strong, it is vital that the UW system and our operations are supported. Simply put, as the university goes, so goes the state. Next, I have several updates on our ongoing leadership searches, beginning with UW Stevens Point. A 12-member search and screen committee was named last month to help identify the successor to Chancellor Bernie Patterson, who has announced his plans to retire later this year. The committee will be chaired by Regent Karen Walsh, thank you, with Mary Bowman, professor of English, serving as vice chair. The committee has 10 voting members, including 5 regents and 5 individuals knowledgeable about the duties and responsibilities of the position. In this case, that means 2 faculty members, 1 staff representative, 1 student, 1 community alumni member. We are also adding 2 additional non-voting members to represent UW Stevens Point's 2-year branch campuses. The committee will receive its formal charge from me and President Cross early next week, and then begin the process of identifying candidates. Turning to the University of Wisconsin Green Bay, the Special Regent Committee for the UW-GB Chancellor Search, which is chaired by Regent Bob Atwell, conducted its finalist interviews last week. The full board will consider a recommendation for the next Chancellor of UW Green Bay from this committee during our closed session later today. Finally, for an update on the UW presidential search, I will turn to Regent Vice President Michael Greavy, who chairs the search committee, for an update. Regent Greavy.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Our committee held a meeting as scheduled last week, albeit virtually. The meeting was productive, it was robust, and I think it went very well. At this point in time, we're planning to move forward as scheduled with interviews continuing in mid-April. Again, those will be virtual as opposed to in person. At this point in time, although there's a significant amount of uncertainty, we're planning to move forward as scheduled. Having said that, I think it's only common sense to acknowledge that in light of the uncertainty, it's possible that our schedule could change, circumstances could change, causing us to reconsider, and we are thinking about those issues as we go along. But at this point, the search is continuing as scheduled on the timeline we established, and I think is going quite well. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Greeby. I would agree. Given the circumstances, things have gone very, very well for all of our search activities, and for Regents and others involved. You certainly have our thanks for your participation and activity. With that, we will now move on to item number 6, which is our proposed consent agenda. In the interest of time, the following items have been included on a proposed consent agenda. Item 6A, approval of the record of our February 6th and 7th meeting of the Board of Regents. Item 6B, report of the Wisconsin Technical College System Board. Item 6C, approval of a Bachelor's of Science in Electrical Engineering at UW Green Bay. Item 6D, approval of the Master of Science in Athletic Training at UW-Madison. Item 6E, approval of the Bachelor of Science in Global Health at UW-Madison. Item 6F, approval of the Bachelor of Science in Environmental Engineering at UW River Falls. And item 6G, approval of the Master of Science in Business Analytics at UW Whitewater. One thing I'd like to clarify is that we are proposing today to authorize institutions to provide these 5 academic programs, that approval will be contingent upon having the necessary institutional resources in place prior to program startup. The uncertain implications of the COVID-19 pandemic make that a necessary caveat. Approval of the consent agenda requires a unanimous vote. Are there members of the board who would like to remove any items from the consent agenda for further discussion or consideration? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as proposed?
So moved, Mike Jones.
Thank you, Regent Jones. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Regent Greeby. Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item 7, approval to modify and consolidate Regent policy documents related to the transfer and award of credit for extra institutional learning. So the Board of Regents is being asked to consider a proposal to modify and consolidate several Regent policy documents related to the transfer and award of credit for extra institutional learning. I'll now call upon Dr. Carleen Vandesandy, Associate Vice President for Academic Programs and Educational Innovation, to provide an overview of the proposed changes. Dr. Vandesandy, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Regent Peterson. This policy comes before the board today as part of the board's office's efforts to collaborate with the Office of Academic and Student Affairs to review all academic policies, to ensure that the policies are updated based on federal and state statutes and guidelines, in particular Act 46 of the revised language of the Wisconsin statute to include 72 credits in the Universal Transfer Credit Agreement between the Wisconsin Technical System and the UW system, and also to align our policies with the guidance from professional higher education organizations to reflect current evidence-based practices. We hope to achieve an increase in the consistency in transfer practices across our universities. What we are asking then is we ask to seek to rescind and recreate Regent Policy Document 7-1, UW System Undergraduate Transfer Policy, and to rename the new policy Transfer and Award of Credit for Extra Institutional Learning. The new policy reflects the guidance and principles found in the joint statement for the transfer and award of credit, supported by the American Council on Education, the Council for Higher Education Accreditation, and the American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admission Officers. The new policy contains updates to include the many ways that students' coursework and learning experiences are evaluated to determine the knowledge and skills that they bring to our university through coursework at the sending university, as well as through extra institutional learning through military credit, credit for prior learning, advanced placement testing, and the International Baccalaureate. You will see in Resolution 7B that the policies, Regent Policy 4-1, minimum requirements for an associate degree, will be joined to this new policy to provide a framework for the expectations of general education in transfer. Also included is the provision for the transfer of associate degrees earned at the sending UW university that will fulfill the general education requirements at the receiving university. Additionally, the proposed policy incorporates statutory provisions related to awarding of credit for military experience and training as seen in Act 59 of the Wisconsin Statutes, Chapter 36.31, subsection 4. Additional statutory provisions are related to the Universal Transfer Credit Agreement with the Wisconsin Technical College System and tribal and private colleges, first reflected in the Act 20 of the state statutes 36.21, subsection 2M for the Universal Credit Transfer for 30 credits that has now been replaced with Act 46 in revised language that increases the number of credits that are common between the two systems to a total of up to 72 credits. The board delegates to the president of the UW system the responsibility for creating more detailed policies to implement these general guidance policies and the requirements of the statutes. Over the last academic year, UW system held 2 system-wide convenings composed of transfer coordinators, registrars, general education directors, faculty, and representatives from the provost offices to talk about the need for policy clarifications, to identify top issues related to transfer, to identify successful transfer strategies, and how to move forward in response to proposed changes in our state statutes. These meetings also included members of the Wisconsin Technical College System Administration, transfer coordinators, and registrars. We also conducted a survey at both higher education systems who work with transfer to follow up on the main themes that emerged from our meetings. That is the end of my report.
Thank you, Dr. Vandesandy. Regents, let's begin. May I first have a motion to approve Resolution 7A, 7B, 7C?
So moved. Olivia Woodmansee.
Second,
Regent
Hall.
Woodmansee. And a second?
Regent Hall.
Regent Hall, thank you. Any discussion or questions for Dr. Vandesandy on this matter, on these matters? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So Regents, we'll now move on to capital projects. This will be starting with item 8. And I'm going to call on Alex Rowe, Senior Associate Vice President for Capital Planning and Budget, to provide an overview of these several capital planning requests. Let's take them one at a time, starting with the UW-Madison's request for authority to lease space for the School of Veterinary Medicine. This is item 8. Associate Vice President Rowe, are you on the phone?
I am here. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning to you. Yes, loud and
All
clear.
right. So since 2006, the Influenza Research Institute has been housed at the research park. In 2010, we expanded space thanks to a grant. Now we've got additional grant funds to expand the research and corresponding lab space again. The research park will build the new space and a connector. This new space allows the Institute to more effectively use their BSL-3 lab space, which is the highest level of containment laboratory that we have at UW-Madison. This institute is overseen by Professor Yoshihira Kawakaka, I may have mispronounced that, my apologies, a pathobiologist working on projects in viral influenza. His lab meets the standards of the USDA and the CDC. This type of research has been deemed important by the National Institute of Health and the World Health Organization. He is one of our leading researchers at UW-Madison. This will be a 3-year term with a 5-year renewal, and we will amortize the improvements over the length of the lease. That's my report.
Thank you, Alex. Regents, can I seek a motion to approve Resolution 8?
Regent Walsh, so moved.
Thank you,
Regent Tiedemann,
Walsh.
second.
Thank you, Regent Tiedemann. Any discussion for Alex on this first item with UW Veterinary Medicine School? Okay,
Just,
hearing none. Oh, yes, Regent Walsh, my apologies.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that Yoshikawa Oka is one of the preeminent viral researchers in the country, and we're so fortunate to have him and keep him at Madison. And so this lab expansion is crucial, obviously, even more so at the present time.
Yeah, agreed. Other comments from Regents? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the motion carries. Item 9 is another request from UW-Madison requesting authority to construct the demolition and abatement scope of the UW-Madison Gymnasium Natatorium replacement project. Alex, you can continue to give us an update on this as well, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. So this is a project that was enumerated as part of the fiscal year 1921 capital budget. It is part of the University of Wisconsin and Madison's overall RecWell program master plan. It'll completely remove the existing building, which is really beyond repair, which is, and again, woefully undersized and in somewhat of a state of decline. In order to keep the project on track and to meet the students and the donor schedule, we'd like to start the demolition and removal of the building this summer. It's a different type of contractor that does this kind of work, so therefore the Department of Administration has agreed that we could put forth a demolition and abatement contract. We are working closely with them to complete the design and construction drawings for the new building, which we hope to release that project later in the fall. So at this time, we're bringing forth just a request to demolish and remove the structure at the current site for an overall estimated cost of $5.344 million, of which 3.8 is program revenue supported borrowing and about 1.4 is gift funds. And that concludes the report.
Well, as a parent of two swimmers, I've got many fond memories of the UW Natatorium and high school swim meets, but I can speak from within my family, everyone is wholly supportive of demolishing the UW Nat. Questions from other regions? Let me first seek a motion to approve the resolution 9 from Regent Bechtel. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
From Regent Klein. Thank you. With that, any discussion of other board members related to the UW Natatorium? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We'll move on to item 10, which is a request for authority to construct UW system all-agency maintenance and repair projects. Go ahead, Alex.
So before you is a request for 2 projects. The first will be to replace the windows at 3 residence halls at UW Superior. The buildings are more than 50 years old and the exterior windows are pretty bad. So we would like to replace that. Second project in front of you is to complete the central heating plant fuel reliability project on behalf of UW-La Crosse. As you may have seen in the past, some of the scopes of these projects have been larger than our original estimate. So we are here asking for additional funds to support that project increase. I would note that given the current situation of the coronavirus, the Department of Administration is working closely with our institutions. We are not going to be undertaking any interior heating plant work until the pandemic is complete, out of respect for our limited heating plant staff, but we will do as much exterior work as possible and long lead equipment items. And this item will bring the project total to about $4.9 million.
Alex, is it safe to say that that's how we're treating a good many of our capital projects? We're continuing with external construction wherever possible and sort of temporarily suspending internal projects?
Regent Peterson, it depends on the project. Many of our buildings are largely vacant, so actually it's a good time to be doing construction. So where we have the ability to do interior work, we are. where in the case of the heating plant, where we do have people working in the plant and not a lot of staff, we are taking extra precautions. We do have large-scale construction projects. As you know, the governor's emergency order deemed public construction essential. So we are actually working with institutions on a case-by-case basis. So if an institution is uncomfortable bringing forth a project at this time, we are deferring it to either another year or later in the year. So the windows at Superior will probably move forward, but the heating plant projects will go more slowly. So we are taking extra care both financially and physically to ensure that the construction community is safe, but our people are safe as well.
Yeah, that's very, very responsive. Thank you, Alex. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 10?
So moved, Mike Jones.
Regent Jones in a second.
Second.
Thank you, Regent Greeby. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? I'm sorry, Regent Bechtel, did you have a comment? I think you might be on mute, Scott. Scott, you struggling a little bit?
President Peterson, may I make a comment? This is Ray.
Absolutely. Yep, President Cross.
I believe one of the things that you were alluding to is our effort. Alex and the team is carefully scrutinizing every capital project. We're doing that with the campuses as well, particularly as it relates to program revenue projects. Given the situation and the unknowns about students and the population we'll have on campus and the fees that we'll pay for these debt services, we're being awfully careful as it relates to those kinds of things. I just wanted to mention that, broader than the all agency money.
Okay. I have texted Regent Bechtel. Let's move on, and then he can relay his question to me, and we can bring it back if it's necessary. Item 11 is our final capital request from UW-Madison, seeking authority to complete design and construction for all fourth floor Dutton Laboratory renovation project. Alex, could you discuss this request for us?
Yes. On behalf of UW-Madison, they have been able to woo away a very important professor, Andrea Dutton. She's an international expert in sea level rise. She was hired away to come. She is not only a MacArthur Fellow, but I believe she's also a Fulbright Scholar. So very, very important researcher has come to the university. And we are in the process of designing a very unusual laboratory for her. It has to be metal free. It is highly unusual. We have never done one of these before. So we are working very carefully with her and her team to design this project. The reason I raise it as an unusual project, there can be no metal. We have not done one of these before. And so we have estimated what we believe is the construction value at 1.9 for a total project. However, given that we haven't done this before, as we work through design, we reserve the right and just wanted to let you know that should, when we actually go to construction, the costs increase, we might be back for a budget increase. We are looking at multiple ways to design and build this in the best, most efficient way to have this laboratory online for her as soon as possible. We have a highly qualified architect, and it will require more oversight in the field. Again, there can be no metal in this lab, which if you think about the construction world, that's a bit more tricky than your average construction project. So on behalf of UW-Madison, I request approval to move forward on the gift and grant project for about $1.9 million.
Alex, thank you. I have my packet in front of me. Timeline on this? Could you comment?
We are hoping to bid it sometime in the fall.
Okay.
And that will largely be dependent upon whether we build it all the traditional way or we procure it as a more of an equipment item. So we're still investigating all of the options with UW-Madison. Our hope is to get this project finished no later than next summer, because obviously she's on campus now, and until she has the right kind of lab, she can't really fully do her work. I believe she's going to be working abroad for a little bit. Well, she was going forward, and I know that this is a faculty member that Chancellor Blank herself is very engaged with and wants to ensure we get this project done as quickly as possible.
Thank you for that. Regents, may I have a motion to approve Resolution 11?
So moved.
Thank you, Regent Delgado. And a second?
Second, Regent Walsh.
Regent Stanford.
Thank you, Carolyn. Any discussion from board members on item 11? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item 11 carries. That concludes our activities for UW-Madison, and we'll be now moving on to item 12, which is for UW-Milwaukee. And I'll invite Robin Van Harpen, Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administrative Affairs at UW-Milwaukee, to provide an overview of the proposed UWM Connected Systems Institute membership agreement with We Energies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I see you can hear me.
Yeah.
I also have with me Jennifer Abely, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at UWM. And of course, our Chancellor, Mark Money, can also speak to this if there are questions. So this relates to UWM's new Connected Systems Institute, which is an institute that is committed to conducting advanced research related to digital manufacturing, specifically focusing on the industrial Internet of Things. And the Regents, in particular, the Business Committee, have had a number of items come through relating to Connected Systems Institute in the last year. And that includes the first and founding membership agreement that we brought forward in July of 2019. And at that time, we had indicated that future membership agreements would follow the same format and have the same contract terms. So we now have our second agreement to bring forth to the board that is over $1 million, and that is with the Wisconsin Electric Power Company. WEPCO has contributed $1 million towards the proposed membership agreement, which again is identical to the Rockwell agreement that had been previously approved by the board. And their membership will last 5 years from approximately May 1st of 2020 through 2025. If you have any questions about this at all, I'm be happy to entertain them, or also have Jennifer speak to this.
Regents, any questions for Vice Chancellor Van Harpen or the UWM team? Okay, hearing none, at this time I'll seek a motion to approve Resolution 12. I'll remind Regent Delgado he's recusing himself from this vote. May I have a motion?
So moved, Jan Mueller.
Thank you, Regent Mueller. And may I have a second?
Second, Regent Hall.
Okay, Regent Hall. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, the motion carries, and I believe Regent Bechtel's audio is back, and so I'm going to turn the floor over to him for a question on previous item. Regent Bechtel. Scott, I think we're still struggling to hear you. So Regent Bechtel has shared with me his question, and it's a tough one, having to do with building repairs of residence halls at a time when we're not sure what the campus residential life will be like. And I'd perhaps go back to Associate Vice President Rowe and ask if she could just provide commentary to Regent Bechtel related to residence hall construction just associated with the uncertainty of the moment. Is Alex still with us?
I'm with us, absolutely. It's a great question, and to sort of dovetail on what President Cross said a little earlier, we are actually looking at each and every project. We're looking at projects that haven't yet been, that have already been bid, but the contracts have not been signed. We're actually looking at projects where the contract might have been signed. We're looking at projects in the bid room and then projects in design. And in fact, some of our institutions have asked to defer construction projects on residential halls. We've got 2 or 3 or 4 where we have notified the Department of Public Works we wish to wait. One institution has asked to postpone for a year. 2 or 3 institutions have asked to not go forward at this time. So we are taking into consideration the financial concerns that any institution has, particularly residence halls and dining halls, where we know the rebates have occurred. The leadership, Ray, asked us to look at each of these individually. So we're only going to move forward with projects where the financial analysis is acceptable to the leadership of the university and the institution. So we are being very mindful and very careful at this time.
Okay, I think that is in alignment with Regent Bechtel's question. Certainly just a notion of, are we doing a full analysis, making certain that it's a wise financial decision? And I think the fact that we're doing it granularly by case basis suggests that we are giving that full consideration. So thank you for that, Alex, and thank you to the team, Robin and others at UW-Milwaukee for your project as well. If we can, Regents, we'll now go on to items 13 through 15, which deal with UW-Madison contract approvals. I'm going to ask Lauren Heller, Vice Chancellor of Finance and Administration at UW-Madison, to provide an overview of the 3 UW-Madison contracts submitted for consideration. We'll take them one at a time, beginning with the UW-Madison clinical trial agreement with Novartis Pharma AG. Vice Chancellor Heller, good morning.
Good morning, Regent Peterson, Regents. Thank you for this opportunity to present these contracts for you. The first of the 3 is from a contract between Novartis Pharma AG and the School of Medicine and Public Health Statistical Data Analysis Center in the Department of Biostatistics and Medical Informatics. Novartis is a Swiss pharmaceutical company, one of the largest in the world, and they specialize in research and therapies in all manner of different areas, from cancer to ophthalmology, neuroscience, etc. The agreement's for a 3-year term, and it would allow this group at the med school to provide biostatistical data analysis services to clinical trials that Novartis is designing and conducting. So this is really a fee-for-service agreement master that would allow us to quickly enter into statistical assistance contracts with Novartis on other clinical trials. So this wouldn't actually do clinical trials itself, but rather provide those services for other ongoing trials. I guess I'd pause there and would be happy to take any questions.
Okay, Regents, before questions, can I have a motion to approve Resolution 13, and then we'll go into discussion?
So moved.
Mike Jones.
Thank you, Regent Jones. And a second?
Second, Regent Woodmansee.
Thank you, Regent Woodmansee. Questions from members of the boards for Vice Chancellor Heller? It looks as if I'm not seeing any questions from Regents. And with that, I'd call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Name sign. Lauren, let's move on to the item 14, UW-Madison clinical agreement with Janssen. Just another reminder, Regents Jones and Klein are recusing themselves on this item. So Lauren, back to you.
Thank you. Okay, so the next contract is a clinical trial master agreement between Janssen Research and Development and the School of Medicine and Public Health at UW-Madison. This master agreement would allow us to sponsor clinical trials in the area of cardiovascular and metabolism, immunology, infectious diseases, neuroscience, oncology, and pulmonary hypertension. Just a sampling of different things that Janssen works on. These folks have been consistent sponsors of UW-Madison research. Since 2004, we've done about $2 million in research funding from Janssen and its affiliates. Other than that, this is a pretty standard clinical master agreement for us, and we're excited to work with Janssen.
Okay, Regents, a motion to move forward Resolution 14.
So moved, Lepso.
Thank you, Regent Lebzo. And a second?
Second, Chris Peterson.
Thank you, Regent Peterson. Questions from members of the board for the Janssen contract? I think we're pretty well-known figure with Janssen. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The same sign. That contract carries as well. And then our final contract is item 15, UW-Madison fixed price agreement with EG Crop Science Incorporated. Lauren, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, this is an exciting agreement for us between EG Crop Science and our College of Ag and Life Sciences, and specifically the Wisconsin Crop Innovation Center at the Ag School. The agreement would be a $2.1 million 27-month fixed price agreement on a project called Banana Transformation, an interesting title. The goal of the work, which is sort of one part fee for service, one part research, would be that the Wisconsin Crop Innovation Center would insert or modify a gene in bananas to make it resistant to a particularly virulent fungus that is currently threatening the world's banana crops. We would then transfer the plant to EG Crop Science, who would test its resistance to the fungus. So the gene in question is actually owned by EG Crop Science. It's their IP, which they've developed. We would be doing fee-for-service work in inserting that gene, but our folks are essentially doing research in developing the methodologies and the tactics to actually do this gene insertion, something which they do well and frequently at the Crop Innovation Center, but which hasn't been done like this on bananas before for us. So we would retain the IP related to the techniques of gene insertion that are developed through this collaborative work. And EG Crop Science would actually own the resulting plant, which hopefully will be resistant to this fungus, which threatens the world's banana supply. So very important work. And let me pause there.
Okay, I'll seek a motion to approve Resolution 15 from a Regent.
So moved, Regent Tiedemann.
Regent Tiedemann and Regent Walsh will second. Quick question, Lauren, is this a new contract with EG Crop Science? Meaning, have we done business with them, research business with them previously?
That is a great question. I do know that this one is, in fact, a new contract. I'm not sure we have done business with them previously. Allow me to double check that and get back to you.
That'd be fine. It was more just curiosity. Other questions from Regents on EG Crop Science? Okay, I've scanned the Hollywood squares and it looks like we're good. At this time, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Vice Chancellor Heller. We're going to move on to item 16, and I'm going to ask Lauren to stay with us on the line for the next item, and I'm going to call on Rob Kramer, UW System Vice President for Administration, to provide the board with an update on the Administrative Transformation Program. Vice Kramer will start us off, and then Vice Chancellor Heller will participate as well. Rob, do we have you on the line?
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide the update today on the status of the Administrative Transformation Program. For our update, Lauren and I will provide a review of the current state for the board, then move to highlight some of the pre-planning work that's been completed and conclude our update with a look forward. we can then respond to any questions that the board has.
Yes, thank you, Rob, and thank you, Regent Peterson. We've made significant progress during the pre-planning phase and do feel it's important that we continue to move this major project forward, even as we address these unprecedented challenges presented by COVID-19.
So board members may recall that UW System, UW-Madison engaged in assessments during 2018 of our existing business processes, information technology systems, and needs in the area of finance and human resources. These assessments were intended to lead to a planning timeline for making operational improvements and moving our underlying technology to a cloud-based platform. As noted in the background information you received, we currently use Oracle PeopleSoft for our shared financial system and our HR system. These are hosted on-premise by UW-Madison's DoIT Information Technology Group and support a wide range of HR and financial operations. The on-premise hosting means that our hardware for the current financial and HR system sits physically in Madison. We've periodically had to invest to update this hardware to support both HR and finance activities. The shared financial system supports general ledger, accounts payable, travel reimbursement, and numerous other services. And we have about 21,000 users system-wide. This was first implemented in 1999, and we completed our most recent software upgrade in 2018. The HR system provides personnel, payroll, and benefits processing for all institutions and employees, and it was first implemented in 2011, and we completed a major upgrade in 2017. We're also now in the process of completing an infrastructure upgrade to replace our current end-of-life hardware with a new platform that hosts the old software. This new platform is expected to provide a stable hardware environment for the next 5 years.
As the board will recall, the assessments that Rob mentioned identified more than 500 third-party bolt-on, shadow, or other ancillary systems across UW system. We did more work to estimate the cost of these systems at UW-Madison and found a range of costs for supporting that, probably between $10 and $20 million. Note that these are costs in addition to the costs we need to incur in order to support HRS and SFS, the core systems that are being improved with these bolt-ons. More importantly, the assessments identified a range of inconsistent business processes that add complexity to HR and finance tasks, add to a lack of good data and reporting for decision-making, and pose significant information security challenges. Notably, we'll need to upgrade many of these systems over the next several years, spending more money on this strategy if we're not able to move forward with the ATP project.
So these assessments led to the pre-planning project that we first presented to the board in February of 2019 and has now become branded as the Administrative Transformation Program. I'll now move to kind of a summary of the pre-planning work for the board. The pre-planning since February has included building a core project team, identifying strategy leads for research, HR, finance, change management, and other functional areas. We've also conducted additional reviews of the current state at UW-Madison and UW System and have completed discovery visits at all of the UW institutions. We conducted this with the understanding that this project should focus on standardizing our HR and finance business processes, improving the experiences of employees who use these tools, providing significantly better information for making decisions, and addressing the operational risks that we've identified. The technology migration from on-premise to cloud-based is really intended to support these priorities.
Yeah, so the pre-planning work evaluated different ways that we could try and address and improve the situation. One being a more incremental approach, using our existing software and evaluating that against migration to the cloud. to see which of these different paths better supported our operational goals. And through this, we landed on a strategy, as we previously discussed with the board, that it made sense to move UW-Madison and UW System Administration together as a phase one project with a strong focus on process standardization and elimination of these ancillary technology systems. Other UW institutions would move forward in a proposed phase two. We've learned a lot more about what it would really take to do this project and to do it correctly through the course of pre-planning. And at this time, we're projecting and crossing our fingers and hoping that we could do this in about 3 years for phase one, with an additional couple of years, 2 to 3, for phase two.
So we had anticipated bringing the pre-planning recommendations to the board this month for approval. But as President Cross noted in his comments, the COVID pandemic has forced us to reevaluate a number of our plans. A month ago or so, in February of 2020, I had anticipated we would be asking for the approval to include moving forward with software contracts and implementation partners. Our pre-planning work has included demonstrations and negotiations with software firms, and we've also been in the process of doing an RFP for both a software implementation partner and a quality assurance partner. However, after further discussions the last couple of weeks and monitoring the impact of the pandemic, we decided this would not be the appropriate time to bring the program forward to the board for action. I do want to be clear that the preferred path forward is still launching a single integrated program, as Lauren described, to allow UW-Madison to focus more of its resources on its mission by slowing the growth of administrative activity over time and bringing operational efficiencies to other institutions throughout the system.
Yeah, so I guess this leaves us still moving forward, but intending to complete pre-planning as scheduled and begin the formal planning phase, adjusting our program to reflect this current situation. So along those lines, the selection of the cloud-based software has been paused at this time without making an award. The implementation partner selection process is being rescheduled and retooled. And we continue to work, as I think Rob mentioned, on a statement of work for a quality assurance vendor for the project. So keeping those things, in the hopper and moving forward. I would note that the assessment remains valid and that the current financial and human resources ERPs really are not serving the diverse needs of the UW institutions, and that the march of enterprise technology to cloud-based solutions, weighed against costs and complexities of current systems and their negative impacts on financial controls, information security, process standardization, efficiency, and the like contribute to the impetus for change. The business case for ATP remains strong and compelling. The COVID-19 pandemic unfortunately necessitates a slower approach than we had planned. So we do think this is the prudent way forward at this time, given the uncertainties related to operational parameters, revenue, and unplanned expenditures. For now, the scale of these impacts and their duration are unclear, but we'll continue working on this project and surveying the landscape that it exists within. And in June, we plan to come back and brief the board on the status of the continuing pre-planning work. And if circumstances support proceeding at that time, we would also bring a resolution to move forward at the June meeting.
So Regent President Peterson and board members, that concludes our update. We're happy now to answer questions.
Yeah, thank you, Rob and Lauren. Excellent update. For the board's benefit, let me say that quite literally 2 weeks prior to shelter at home announcements, we as a leadership team had met and very much viewed the assessment as warranting for this to move forward. So I want to add emphasis to the report that we just heard from Rob and Lauren that, we've done substantial pre-planning. The core teams in research, HR, IT, change management have hired staff. This is both, internal staffing, contracting resources, financial selections for software providers. This is really long overdue. I think both of our presenters have done a very nice job keeping us informed on the need for us to improve our processes, to modernize them, to get them more resilient and IT secure. And so, I think we should hope for the best that come June, we can review that resolution because while this is a wholly expensive endeavor, I think we've been well convinced that it needs to be done. So again, I want to thank our presenters, and I would ask any members of the board have questions as it relates to the ATP update. I see Regent Mueller. Good morning. Go ahead.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you to the presenters. I've been following this very closely, obviously, and I do think that there's been excellent work done in the pre-planning effort, but there'll be a lot of eyes on us in the future. It's very hard to pull off these projects on time or on budget and with the desired functionality. And we don't have any cost estimates that have been presented to us formally. So I urge my colleagues in the future, we'll just have to keep a close eye on this. It's enormously costly, or will be, but also very necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Mueller. You play the bad cop so well. There will be considerable eyes on us. This is substantial expenditure considerations. Robert, Lauren, I think you wholly agree with that we understand the scrutiny that will come with these investments, but nevertheless, I think we want to make that calculated decision to continue to move forward.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments, Regent Mueller and Regent Peterson. And agree that, this is a major capital investment and that we're contemplating. And, we fully expect, there to be appropriate oversight and accountability around the project. I don't know if Rob wants to add anything to that.
No, I would concur with that. And I think one of the elements for members of the board to be aware of, I mentioned the quality assurance partner. I think one of the expected responsibilities for that QA partner is to provide direct updates to the board, probably business and finance, without the filter of management being involved. So you have that separate review and direct input in answering your questions about how we're doing.
Thank you, guys. So again, this was just a report for information purposes provided by Rob and Lauren. I would remind Regents, this is a substantial price tag. It's also a multi-year, phase one is 3 years and phase two is an additional. So it's really a 5-year investment plan and program. And that's why that it has such a financial impact to it. So more to come on ATP, and we'll endeavor to move forward with the agenda if I see no other questions from Regents or comments. Great. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate you being here with us today. And let's, as Regents, move on to item 17, which is the approval of reduction to the EAP application fee. I'm going to turn this back to President Cross to present this and the next item, beginning with the proposed reduction in the EAP application fees. So Ray, President Cross, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Regent President Peterson. The EAP fee reduction proposal before you today is part of a larger ongoing effort to help students more easily find their way into our system. The reduction of the EAP fee from $50 to $25 is one of the ways we're trying to keep our pledge to students and families to maintain access, affordability, and opportunity. Through this fee reduction, we're hoping to incentivize students to do three things. First, we want more students to apply to the university. Today, we admit just 3 out of every 10 students, roughly, graduate from a high school in Wisconsin. For students of color, that drops to 2 out of 10. Making it more affordable for students to apply to our system is obviously something we're very interested in doing. Second, we want students to apply to more than one UW university. Currently, 75% of the students who apply to the UW system only apply to one institution. We want them to take a serious look at every UW that fits the degree programs and the student life they're looking for. So if they're not admitted to their first choice, they actually have real alternatives. Third, we want students to complete the applications they start, but don't always finish. Last year, for example, there were more than 100,000 applications created, but only 67,000 applications submitted. I want to repeat that. That's revealing. There were more than 100,000 applications created, but only 67,000 of them were actually submitted. While there may be a lot more reasons for this than the fee, having a lower priced application option could be very beneficial. So reducing the application fee is rooted in the need to stay competitive. Recruiting students has always been a competitive effort. And when we compare our system application fees to what other state systems charge, we are either more expensive or as expensive. Minnesota has its MinSCU system charge about $20 for its application fee. Illinois, another major competitor to several of our institutions, charges about $55 per application. Reducing our fee is a small but significant step in being able to compete with bordering states. And finally, this is about our commitment to affordability. We know that even with this reduction, there will be students who can't afford a $25 application fee. I want to assure everyone who cannot afford the fee, we have ways to help you. They can obtain a waiver. We're making that easier to see on our future webpage, which we're testing at this point. We also want to ensure students seeking transfer between and among our 2 and 4-year institutions that they don't have to pay the electronic application fee a second time. The bottom line is we should be focused on what is most important, helping students find the right fit in our system without being limited by cost. I should also add that while our new EAP was under development prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, having an easy, low-cost application is likely more critical now than ever. Back to you, President Peterson.
Thank you, Ray. I do know that several members have questions for you on this matter. I'll seek a motion to approve Resolution 17 now from Regents.
So moved. Olivia.
Thank you, Regent Woodmansee, and a second from Regent Greeby, and then we'll pivot to discussion. And let me start with the hopefully audible Regent Scott Bechtel.
Yeah, can you hear me, Regent Peterson?
Loud and clear. Welcome.
All right. Well, thank you. I got too many devices going here, I think. I just want to applaud Ray and his team for this particular change. I mean, the accessibility, the affordability, and this, I think, continues us on the path of moving us towards more of a unified system. So kudos. I love also the idea of the alternative, that students can make multiple applications to multiple campuses. I think this will help us as we continue encouraging the various universities to differentiate themselves in their academic programs. So a lot of positives in that. I do contrast this. I'm going to go back to item 10, where we've approved apparently the multi-residence hall exterior window improvements, and I do have questions and concerns about that, where we are replacing windows at a residence hall for a campus where I don't know, I can't forecast out what my enrollment's going to be at that campus, or if that particular campus is going to have more challenges. So I just think I understand Alex's comments and how we're picking and choosing projects, but the compare and contrast of item 10 and this item, I just would warn my fellow regents, we have to be very careful on some of the capital spends, especially those that could be forestalled, or we could wait till we see what's happening, versus this type of measure, which is all about the students and making sure there's accessibility, ease of admissions. It just strikes me that these are going in two very different directions. So just wanted to speak to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Regent Bechtel. I think that's very well said. One of the things, well, back to capital projects, it's clear from President Cross's direction to his senior staff and team that we need to be judicious on all of those right now. And I think that came through relatively loud and clear from Alex, but let me just add emphasis, but that is the viewpoint that we're maintaining at the system right now. Planning with facts and not forecasting things that are unknown at this point in time. As it relates to the EAP, one thing in the discussions we've been having recently, particularly as it relates to fall enrollment, is that there will be an expectation that there could very likely be a lot more in-state students that choose to stay in Wisconsin versus going out of state. And that creates an opportunity for us as a system. And I think this EAP will assist with that. So I'm very supportive of what we're doing here. And I think it'll help with the environment. Likewise, I think the ability to apply to multiple schools almost feels like the Common App, where you can select a couple of schools that you're attracted to and make that declaration at one point in time. So I commend Ray and the team for this. I know Chris Navia, his staff, has worked hard, and her team as well. And so those would be my comments, Regent Bechtel. Other folks hoping to make comment here? I see President Cross. Regent Colón, were you just adjusting your camera?
Yes, I was just adjusting the camera.
Yeah, I think you look great.
I did want to say,
I'm sorry, Regent Hall, Dr. Hall.
I definitely support, this change. The options for the students are so important. I think even that reduced cost is important, because those numbers that, President Cross just gave, that gap is much too wide. So, again, kudos. And I would agree that there will probably be an increase of students within the state, just given what's going on in today's environment.
Yeah, the flip side of that, Eve, is that, of course, we have very attractive campuses that are very safe. And because of that, they're highly desired by out-of-state students as well as international students. And so while we could see that buttressing of in-state students, we're going to have to pay close attention to what our out-of-state and international forecasts look like. And I know the system staff is trying to pre-plan for that now, which I think is important. President Cross?
Yeah, good point.
President Cross, and then Regent Walsh.
Regent Walsh can go first, Drew.
Go ahead, Regent Walsh.
Thank you. I wondered, and I apologize if I missed this, I don't see it in the document, and I don't recall hearing you say what kind of a financial hit this will be. Do you have an estimate of that?
Yeah, we think this hit will probably be about $2.5 million across the system. We roughly take in about $5.4 million on the current fees, with the citizens' fee not changing, and they are over half of that fee because they take so many applications. We believe it could be between $2.5 million to our other campuses. And we've actually talked about that quite a bit.
Okay.
We also
Go ahead,
believe
Ray.
we will have an increase in applications.
I wonder, and this may be a radical thing, but I wonder if given the COVID-19 situation, if we couldn't just completely waive the fees through maybe August 1st or something like that. Was that discussed at all, Ray?
Obviously not when we started this, back when we started this. And this, as you can see in the resolution, takes effect August 1st. We've already had some campuses ask me if, in fact, we could waive the fee. And if we do that, we would do that between now and August 1st. So we haven't made a decision on that, but that may be something we actually do for the remaining of this year. That would be something we would have to assess. One campus has already talked about that, and I understand that. But we would need to do that rather quickly if we do that. And so we're having a conference call with the chancellors on Friday, then we will discuss that, Regent Walsh.
Okay, thank you.
Good comments, Regent Walsh. Thank you. Other regents wish to weigh in on this matter? Okay, at this point, I do believe we have a motion. President Cross, I'm sorry.
I do want to speak to Regent Bechtel's point, which I totally agree with. I believe there are a lot of things we don't know about the fall. We are planning to be open fully for business, including our residence halls, auxiliary operations, et cetera, at this point. But as more information becomes available, we'll make adjustments. But we do believe, and these are some things that we are pretty certain about, given the probability, we do believe that there will be a significant decline in international students coming to our institution, regardless of what scenario takes place. We also believe that there will be a decline to the extent of which we don't know in out-of-state students coming to our institution. We do believe that there will be an increase in Wisconsin students, and also that we don't know the impact of online at this point. So those kinds of factors will influence what happens in the fall. We are trying our best not to make any early decisions, but to control our cost on the program revenue side. Any expense that comes out of the auxiliary fund for new kinds of activity, be they maintenance, repair, or a new project, we've already paused a number of those on a number of campuses. We believe the investment in windows at Superior, given their situation, that's a very wise energy conservation investment and something that's been in the works for quite some time. So as it relates to that, we are pausing a number of those projects, and we should have before the board probably in June a report of pausing or delaying all of those program revenue projects. We're going through that one campus at a time, starting actually this afternoon. That's already been going on, and we're carrying it further this afternoon, Regent Bechtel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Regent Bechtel. Regent Mueller, the focus on financial responsibility, accountability has never been stronger, and we need to be vigilant about making sure that when we are able to exit the current situation, we come out and emerge stronger. And that's got to be our guidepost for our activities today and going forward. So I certainly appreciate your comments. I know President Cross and team do as well. Okay, at this time, we have a motion on the floor. Any other final discussion points? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Our EAP application is approved. And we're moving on to item 18. As President Cross is obliged to present for approval an update to the UW Systems Strategic Framework, I've asked him to present it to us this morning, and I'm going to turn the microphone back to Ray to deliver that update. President Cross.
Thank you, Regent President Peterson. The resolution before you would adopt the proposed UW system framework, update or refresh, as we refer to it. This is an update to the 2020 forward vision, which was approved by the board in 2016. So board approval of a strategic framework is not required under region policy, but we think it's meaningful that our leadership actively endorse these priorities. I think it sends an important message throughout the system. It's interesting at this time, all organizations face specific challenges that override and in many cases, just like this, overwhelm long-term strategic plans. Clearly, the COVID-19 pandemic will require specific strategies, focused efforts, activity. We've talked about some of those this morning. However, I believe these broadly stated pillars and the system strategies within each pillar will remain and help guide the system and the institutions within the system through this crisis. Allow me to provide some background on our previous strategic framework 2020 forward. Prior to its adoption back in 2016, system leadership spent several months traveling the state and talking with faculty, staff, students, community leaders, business leaders. We spent hundreds of hours helping to craft that document. We developed a list of priorities and initiatives at both the system and campus levels, falling under 4 of those large, I call them pillars: the educational pipeline, the university experience, business and community mobilization, and operational excellence. Within each of these categories, there are 4 or 5 system priorities and several campus level priorities. So in the past, I think we had too many priorities related to what the institutions should do, rather than framing this as the strategic priority for the system. And that's what we're trying to do this time. We developed methods to track our progress, and we have presented our report card to the board annually. That report card, of course, is also available on our website. So I'm really pleased with the progress we've made. In some areas, we have not made much at all because we just haven't had the money to invest in those areas that we had originally requested. But the year 2020 is upon us, and last fall we began to discuss how to refresh this framework for the next several years. While we simplified the process of gathering input, we were able to gather a diversity of viewpoints representing corners of the state and campuses and communities, from system leadership, chancellors, et cetera. And as I said earlier, we tried to focus this effort on what should the system administration do to facilitate and enhance the work of our campuses. And we also use feedback from the All in Wisconsin tour, the events around the state. Together, we came to believe that the 4 main pillars of the 2020 forward framework continue to serve us well. How do we get more students into and through the pipeline? How do we help them have a better university experience? How do we connect more tightly to our businesses and our communities? And how do we operate more effectively and efficiently? We also refrain from including campus level priorities. As I mentioned, our focus is at the system level. It's not to be overly prescriptive on how the campuses respond to each of these priorities, but to instruct the system on how to be supportive and engaged and help provide a vision for the campuses. It's important to note that the adoption of this framework is not meant to be binding on the next UW system president. Of course, I was concerned about that, but I felt it was important to chart this direction initially. It'll take a while for a new president to adjust, and these are important priorities. That said, these priorities are intended to address the most obvious challenges facing the system, as well as higher education, and in many cases reflect initiatives that have been in progress for years, but perhaps we haven't focused on them as much as we should have. So I expect my successor will find that to be the case, but he or she will be entirely able to make adjustments as they deem appropriate. So let me provide an overview. Yes, I'm going to take the time to walk through these, and I believe Jess has shared a document or posted it up, and you can see it. Let me start with the educational pipeline. And these are the system level priorities within this pipeline, which is designed to get more people into the educational pipeline and through it. So the first element of that is 360 advising. We have implemented the predictive analytics tool, and we are developing that and teaching people how to use it effectively on every campus. The system acquired that, a sizable investment, and each campus is using it and getting better at it, and it is having an impact on their retention. Some campuses had it in place before we did this as a system. Seamless transfer. Everywhere I've been, my whole 42 career, transfer has always been an issue, always. It's never perfect, and there's no way you're going to transfer a 2-year degree in auto tech into neurobiology or something like that. And those issues tend to be anomalies anyway. But we need to provide the tools and systems so this is much easier for our campuses to facilitate and our faculty to advise students. So we've created that transferology. We didn't create it, we acquired the transferology program, which should be implemented and should be up and running very quickly. Now it needs to be populated and effectively, effective articulation agreements placed in that new software package. This is an area, non-traditional students. This is an area where we're going to see an increase in our student numbers as we reach out to students with the declining demographics in the state, reaching out to non-traditional students, that is typically those students 25 and older, is critically important. So we're making that a priority as a part of our pipeline. Notice in this effort, we want to expand credit and non-credit offerings. We want degree and non-degree programming. We want micro and stackable credentials, and we want competency-based validation certificate process. And expanding the pipeline, doing those kinds of things aggressively to a non-traditional audience, which is principally, or was before coronavirus, employed. Expanding opportunity. I don't think we've done enough to reach out to the underrepresented groups in our communities, lower income students that offer pathways to, we want to offer pathways from high school students and career advising throughout their UW system journey. So those are the 4 priorities under improving the educational pipeline. The second is university experience. We want to be more creative, more engaging, make the university experience more effective. One of the ways to do that is through high impact practices. Every one of these practices improve retention, improve the experience for high school or for college students. They include such things as internships, and we're aggressively working on that, capstone experiences, study abroad, which will probably be put on hold for a while, as well as undergraduate research. All of our campuses are trying to do more of those. We need to track them and encourage the growth of those. Cultural competency, fitting with the first category of trying to get more students from underrepresented groups into our pipeline. We want our students that are here, as well as those students, to be more culturally sensitive and responsive to our campus communities, where people from all backgrounds are welcome, valued, and respected as a part of a vibrant learning community. And then health and well-being is another priority within the university experience. The UW system will support and invest in behavioral health research and programs to improve student and employee behavioral health. You see that we've already started down that path. And April, of course, was the month we were supposed to present to the board an update on that. I can assure you that's going well, and they were prepared to do that. And we may be able to do that in June. We will have to see. Finally, campus safety. We want to implement best practice standards across the system for preventing and addressing sexual assault, harassment, and of course, student and employee safety. Those are the pillars, under the pillar of university experience, those are the priorities that we have embarked on, wish to. Business and community engagement. Our priorities as a system is to help encourage the expansion of credit and non-credit in high demand fields within Wisconsin, and to promote tools and resources to help employers build effective internship programs. We want to do more of that. We want the system to collaborate with institutions to promote the importance and the value of UW to policymakers, students, and families and residents of Wisconsin. We want to lead that coordinated advocacy effort to improve our budgets, make more efficient and effective capital projects, et cetera. And we want to provide research-driven solutions to analyze the challenges facing the state. Those are our priorities under community and business engagement. Finally, under operational excellence, the fourth pillar, we want to pursue a transparent, efficient, and effective operations. We discussed the standardization of services earlier when we were talking about the ATM project, moving that to the cloud and integrated software package. But fundamental to that is the standardization of those business practices and the consolidation of services to increase this transparency, et cetera. This may be more important today with the coronavirus than it ever has, and we will be aggressively accelerating our efforts to standardize and consolidate standard services, common services, what we commonly refer to as support services within the entire system. It's an opportunity for us to achieve efficiency and effectiveness. We are working with DOA to improve capital projects design and development. We have mapped out a process. Alex and her team have done a great job to improve it, even within the existing model. How do we control that and manage that in a much better way? And then it's our strategic enrollment management and financial planning. We want to provide data and information, and as we have done for the next through 2026, try to provide enrollment projection based on analysis that combines demographic data, employment data, and things of that nature to help drive what are your enrollment projections based on the assumptions around tuition, based on the assumptions around GPR on auxiliary funds and the like. That financial planning has been going well. Of course, right now, that's a big change, and we will be meeting with every campus to analyze that in detail. That actually, I believe, starts this afternoon as well. We've been doing that, but we're given this situation, things have dramatically changed, but that's why this is even more important. And then rewarding faculty and staff. How do we continually advocate for competitive compensation? So, as well as provide rewards. Those are the four pillars with the system priorities within each of those. And I'll turn this back to you, Regent President Peterson. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to go over that.
Great, thank you, President Cross. Obviously, the strategic framework refresh contains a great deal of information. Jess, thanks for taking the time to upload the document and then bring it down. I'll look to Regents. Folks, can we have a motion to approve Resolution 18?
Stanford Taylor, move.
Thank you, Regent Stanford Taylor. And a second?
Second, Regent Hall.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Now I'll call for questions or comments or thoughts that you'd like to direct to me or President Cross on the strategic framework refresh. Okay. Looks as though the presentation, this is a refresh, and many concepts we've seen previously. Know that we think it's important to stay in alignment during these uncertain times, and so that was the importance of making sure that this was brought before the board this morning. Any final comments? Regent Woodmansee.
Thank you. And thank you for your presentation, President Cross. I was just curious in terms of the educational pipeline, was there any discussion of adding any kind of enhancement of our online resources? Really looking at right now, it's imperative that we have highly structured online classes available for everyone. And so I'm just curious, was that taken into account when creating the strategic framework?
Yes, if you look at both the educational pipeline and the business and community engagement. There are elements in there that don't speak specifically to online, but outreaches to business and industry and communities. So the non-traditional student aspect of that effort is focused on that. Traditionally, historical research has shown that 18-year-olds don't tend to do too well with online courses. So we didn't directly say that or attempt to say we're going to supplant some of our face-to-face or augment those, but that is part of our effort. If we just received approval for the complete first 2 years that were part of the old UW colleges to offer fully online. So we will be expanding more of that. It is not directly addressed to that age group, although it's implied in that effort. The other piece is in the business and in engagement area. If you notice that providing the kinds of degrees, et cetera, that businesses in Wisconsin need, there's also an element there of community engagement. So without using the words, and we don't, when we say alternative delivery, we don't want to limit that to just online. But I envision before the coronavirus, I think there were going to be, given the success of our economy, I think there were going to be a number of 18-year-olds that were going to go to work rather than to go to college. I think that impacted some of our enrollment. How do we reach out to them? Well, if they were working, we want to go into that employer site and help develop their expertise, be it credit or non-credit. And that was part of our effort. I do believe that we need to partner more with high schools, to your point, and providing that. You've seen in my earlier report, there are some schools that are tutoring, or some students that are tutoring, high school students that are home and online now. We need to do more of those kinds of things, though that is not directly expressed in our framework, because we're trying to find a framework that the campuses can fit under and do a lot of this work. We don't do that, they do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Regent Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, President Cross. I just want to commend you for the refresh and the update. When I first came on the board, I was given a book about how to read about how moving or changing a university is like changing the direction of a battleship. I think we all have heard of that analogy. And being nimble, especially in this time, is really hard for such a large $6 billion enterprise. So thank you.
Thank you, Regent Mueller. I hope that our campuses and if you look at this direction, and we're trying to put some priorities on some things, better serving underrepresented students, reaching into our communities and businesses more effectively, and specifically accelerating our effort to standardize processes so we're more efficient and effective. And some of that takes time, but I believe this incident will actually empower us to do some of that faster. So I'm pleased with that.
Thank you, Regent Mueller. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we've got a motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. The strategic framework refresh is approved. Okay, we're moving on to item 19. As the members of this board are well aware, the board has been in the lengthy process of updating the administrative code that helps govern the UW system. First, we're in the process of updating Chapter 17 to reflect and fully implement the freedom of expression policy previously adopted by this board. We're also updating Chapter 18 to clarify what would be considered harassment on campus. Public hearings on the proposed modifications were last held on March 5th. We've had multiple hearings, as the board knows. As it relates to the March 5th hearing, I'd like to thank Regent Mike Jones for presiding over that hearing, and also for Regent Tori Tiedemann, who attended on behalf of students. Summaries of the feedback received through those hearings and the 21-day public comment period have been supplied to all the regents. if approved by the board today, these rules will change and go on to the governor, who could either choose to approve or reject these changes. So let's start the consideration of Resolution 19, approving the modifications to Chapter UW S17 of the Wisconsin Administrative Code titled Non-Academic Student Misconduct. Regents, may I first have a motion to approve Resolution 19?
So moved.
Thank you, Regent Greavy, and may I have a second? Is that Mike Jones? Thank you, Regent Jones. We now have a motion on the table, and I would open it up to Regents for discussion on item 19. Regent Colón.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to weigh in. I think this is a very important issue. And as a new board regent, I just want to provide some thoughts. First, related to some concerns. So how do we define disruptive, violent, and disorderly, and ensure that there is consistent and fair application as we move forward with this process? Are we concerned that there may be more severe physical or even sexual offenses that might not have the same type of consequences? And will this take away from individual campus autonomy to allow them to make their own decisions? Also, could this be more restrictive measures? Could these more restrictive measures put us in jeopardy of receiving taxpayer dollars due to the executive order that was done by Trump? And is this really necessary, taking into consideration the UW system's current authority as well as just general law enforcement? And finally, it's hard to believe that a stable person would do this. So if an individual is moving forward, I would be concerned about their mental health and making sure that we provide individuals with support if that were the situation. Having said that, I'd say that if a person does violate, is violent or disorderly, not only once, not only twice, but 3 times, that it seems reasonable and fair that some type of accountability should be in place. Personally, I feel that we should do all we can to allow freedom of expression, whether it be on the right or the left or independent, and that it be peaceful and even robust in their freedom of expression. My lens to freedom of expression is that it should be safe, it should be equitable, and it should be done with respect. But for the purposes of my vote today, because I haven't been a part of the process, hearing a specific incident, being involved in the legislative process, the rule changes, the board approvals, as well as public hearings, I would prefer to abstain with my vote here today. But I wanted to make sure that I provide some insights of my thoughts on the matter.
Yes, thank you, Regent Colón. Those are very, very thoughtful words, and I think you expressed what a great deal of the members of the Board of Regents believe, which is we do have a very rich, robust freedom of expression policy on the books. The genesis of these activities, these rulemaking activities, started, I think I'll go from memory, in late 2017 or early 2018. And so you can appreciate the wheels of administrative rulemaking don't roll all that quickly. We've had multiple hearings to address the particular component parts of additional penalties, and that's the genesis for what brings us to this, I think, final vote that the board will take. I think you encapsulated very much where a lot of folks' viewpoints are as it relates to freedom of expression and the importance of it. We've heard from other board members as part of this process, and that's part of the discourse that goes with traditional freedom of expression. I appreciate greatly where you're coming from, and will certainly recognize your abstention. I'd ask others any comments that you'd like to make before we move forward. Regent Deeds.
Yes, I agree with everything Regent Colón has said, and I would ask him not to abstain, but to vote. He has a really good handle on this issue, and his views are very much appreciated, and I agree with them, and I will be voting against this. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ed. Other board members, Regent Woodmansee.
Thank you, Regent President Peterson. I first want to say that I definitely understand the timeline of this and how it will go moving forward and how we are kind of in that process right now. That being said, and my acknowledgement of the fact that I haven't been here throughout the whole process that did start in 2017, I do echo several of the thoughts made by Regent Colón and then also previous board members in previous meetings. And because I holistically don't agree with kind of the genesis behind this statement, that is why I'll be voting no today, with still the full recognition of the timeline as it should proceed. So with that, I just wanted to make that known, as well as I've heard several thoughts from students, faculty, and staff on this that are not in support, and I want to make sure that those views are kind of represented on the board, and so I hope to do that with my vote as well.
Yes, thank you, Regent Woodmansee. Regent Walsh.
Thank you, Regent President Peterson. My views on this are well known, and I won't beat that dead horse further today. I just want to say that I have not seen or heard anything in the hearings and feedback meetings we've had to change my opinion. I think that this rule is probably under very shaky First Amendment ground. And to say further, I have all the faith in the world in the chancellors and their staffs across the system to solve these problems at the campus level. I think it's an unnecessary rule, and I will again be voting no.
Thank you, Regent Walsh. Appreciate your comments related to our chancellor's autonomy. Any other regents wish to speak on item 19?
Regent Stanford Taylor.
Yes.
Regent Stanford Taylor. Yes. I commented at one of our earlier meetings that I had some concern about this, and having been in situations where we've tried to create consistent consequence across the board, I understand that does not work. And I've read the materials and looked at the testimony of others who attended some of those sessions, and it seems to comport with what we've all been saying here this morning. So I will be voting against this.
Okay, thank you, Regent Stanford Taylor. Any other comments from regents? I don't want to shut our conversation down here.
Regent President Peterson, Mike Jones, could I make a comment?
Yes, Mike. Yes, absolutely. I was just looking to see you. I can now see why I couldn't. Regent Jones, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think that reasonable people can disagree about an issue like this. From my own perspective, I think the rule does a pretty good job of balancing competing interests. And also, I think that if an individual has been warned once not to do something, if they do it again, they suffer the consequences. So I will vote to support this rule.
Thank you, Regent Jones. Any other comments from regents? Well, thank you for a very good online virtual discussion. This is an important topic. At this time, if I see no other additional comments, I will call the question. All those in favor of the item, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
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 I believe that's Regent Deeds, Regent Stanford Taylor, Regent Walsh, Regent Woodmansee, and Regent Colón. Did you still wish to abstain?
Yes, please.
Okay. And Regent Lebzow. Okay. Thank you. Jess, to my count, the motion carries. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, regents. We'll now move on to item 20, which is Resolution 20, approving the modifications to Chapter UWS 18 of the Wisconsin Administrative Code titled Conduct on University Lands. Regents, may I have a motion to approve Resolution 20? Looking for a motion for.
So moved, Regent Walsh.
Thank you, Regent Walsh.
Second, Mike Jones.
Okay, I'll give it to Regent Woodmansee for being quick on the microphone. Any discussion on this item? Okay, that's been traditional order. This is UWS 18. At this time, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 21 is Resolution 21, and this is approving authority to temporarily waive provisions of Regent policy documents in the Wisconsin Administrative Code. The unprecedented nature of the current public health emergency requires that institutions have every tool possible to meet immediate needs on campus and respond and make decisions promptly. In some cases, appropriate response measures may require waiver of certain provisions of Board of Regent policy or Wisconsin Administrative Code. The authority to grant waivers to Board of Regent policy and to request the Governor of Wisconsin the waiver of provisions of UWS Wisconsin Administrative Code will temporarily rest with the President of the UW system in order to allow for prompt responses to decisions taking place in this rapidly evolving situation. These waivers would be of limited duration for 90 days to allow for appropriate response to the current public health emergency. Any significant matters that affect material board governance or the strategic direction of the UW system and our campuses would still require executive committee and/or full board approval. Let me repeat that. Any significant matters or decisions that affect material board governance or the strategic direction of the UW system and our campuses would still require executive committee and/or full board approval. Regents, may I have a motion to approve Resolution 21?
Chris Peterson. Move.
Thank you, Regent Peterson, and a second from Regent Stanford Taylor. I chose my words carefully there. This was a decision and discussion that was entered into with the Regent leadership, with the Office of General Counsel, with the senior staff, with President Cross, with input from chancellors. This is a temporary authority being vested to the system president to make decisions in a defined and decisive way to be efficient to the process. To date, we have not utilized this authority in any direct order. It was an attempt to give that efficiency to President Cross for a limited period of time. It would be, I believe, difficult and inefficient for us to assemble the executive committee or the full board to make what would be, I would determine, and our general counsel has determined to be rather routine decisions. So that was the genesis for this. Please understand clearly from the leadership of the board and from President Cross, who quite well articulated his views that anything of substance related to the UW system, our governance, our campuses, will always come before our board. This is purely a administrative decision-making authority. So I wanted to make those points, obviously, that I delivered in my remarks, but I wanted to add a little additional emphasis here. And I'd open it up to Regents for any questions or comments that you have at this time.
I have a question, Jose Delgado. It is temporary. Is it? Do we have any idea of any target or any measure as to when we will rescind this order?
Well, it expires in 90 days, and so that would be our duration, Regent Delgado. And we may or may not use it, and if we use it, I think it would be sparingly.
Thank you.
But really,
Thank
this
you.
was a goal of efficiency.
I should have read it in more detail. Thank you very much.
That's okay. Regent Mueller.
Mr. President, I would just urge you to ensure that any financial or programmatic decisions that are made under this policy are well documented.
Yes, well understood from all of the senior staff at UW System, General Counsel's office, and of course, President Cross. That is our intent. And I would actually take the opportunity here to say I've been very impressed with the amount of documentation that we're doing. Some of it is to pursue reimbursement at a later date, but a lot of it has to do with the operational impacts our campuses are experiencing that we may not be giving enough daylight to. And so that's absolutely happening, and your point is well taken. President Cross.
Thank you, Regent President Peterson. To Regent Mueller's point, I believe we need to report to the board any decisions made under this back to the board clearly on a regular basis. Secondly, I doubt that we will actually use this without talking to board leadership. I certainly wouldn't intend that. May not come to the full board, but it would go to a conversation with Drew and Michael probably. But I'm nervous about this. I don't think these are always effective. And when Quinn first brought this to me, I was skeptical, as he will tell you. Not sure we really need it, but I think it's some flexibility related to the timeliness of some decisions, and that's part of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just reiterate, when we had these discussions just several weeks ago, Ray was very quick to assess the situation and say, is this necessary? And I think it's our view that we hope it's not, but if there's a requirement and a need to make decisive, quick action, we want to have President Cross have the authority to do that on behalf of our campuses, faculty, staff, and students. Any other comments on item 21? Hearing none, I'll seek a motion to approve. Is that Regent Klein? Thank you. In a second?
Second.
Regent Klein, are you hoping to comment here?
No.
A motion, but then I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, so we have a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Tiedemann.
Okay, thank you, Regent Tiedemann. Now I'll turn it back to Regent Klein. Tracy, it's yours.
Thank you, Regent President Peterson. I guess how will this exactly work? Just describe it. Will we get notification if it's invoked? And you said 90 days. Is it for the duration of the shelter in place order, or 90 days, or whichever is earlier?
Yeah, so on that note, let me turn it over to Office of General Counsel Quinn Williams just to pop a couple of responses back. Quinn, I think you might be on mute.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, so the request will be coming in from campuses vetted by the president's office with board leadership and likely appropriate chairs of the various committees, depending on what specific region policy is being asked, way of what provision. It is 90 days from, I believe it's March 12th, when the executive order was signed. So it times out to 90 days from that date. So it's roughly equivalent to the executive order. And we're not sure if that's going to be extended at some point either. Governor Evers has indicated that he may seek additional extension time.
And if we were to extend it, we would come before the executive committee, the full board to do so. Let's hope we don't need that authority. Any other thoughts? President Cross, go ahead.
I think it's important. I think it's important that the board understand. The reason I'm skeptical is I'm not sure we would ever need it, but it's important to get an idea what might happen. So let's say we had a case where a student was in a residence hall and we needed to sanitize that building quickly. Would the contract be over $1 million? Probably not. But if it was, that's an area where I think we would move quickly. In other words, I think in the actions that would be directly related to a COVID-19 impact is about the only time we would use this. And even then, I would be probably calling Drew or Michael. I'm just nervous about it, and I think it's dangerous to do this kind of stuff, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about how I feel about it.
Yeah, I would say the communication between, system staff, presidential, communications with leadership. I'd like to think that communications to the full board have been as strong as they can be right now. We've tried to be judicious about filling your inboxes, but there's important information that regents need to have, and we've tried to supply that as often and frequently as we can, and that will continue. I think this is just an added tool and efficiency that, as we've all discussed, very well may not be utilized, but wanted to make sure that we'd have that ability to act where necessary. Okay. Any other thoughts from regents on this matter? 21. Is that you, Mike Jones, or you look okay now? Okay, if I see no other interest, I'd call the question. All those in favor of approval of item 21, vote in the affirmative by saying aye.
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 And those opposed? Thank you. That's unanimous. I appreciate it. At this time, before we conclude the open session of our meeting, are there any regents that have any communications, petitions, or memorials that they'd like to share today? I was not aware of any, and it looks like we don't have any this month. So that is great. Moving on to item 23. At this time, I'll ask all board members to stay on the line while we contemplate the roll call vote to move into closed session. Following the vote, we will take a 15-minute break, and we will reconvene at 11:55, if we could, for the closed session agenda. And with that, I'll turn it over to Vice President Grebe, who will read the motion to move into closed session. Regent Grebe.
Thank you. I move that the Board of Regents move into closed session to A, consider personal histories as permitted by 1985 1F of the Wisconsin statutes related to a UW Superior honorary degree nomination. B, consider personal histories as permitted by section 1985 1F of the Wisconsin statutes related to the naming of facilities at UW-Eau Claire. C, consider the appointment of a chancellor of UW Green Bay as permitted under section 1985 1C and E of the Wisconsin statutes. And D, confer with legal counsel regarding potential litigation in which it is likely to become involved regarding contracts as permitted by section 1985 1G of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you, Regent Grebe. Before I seek a second, I would just I would encourage all regents to keep their connections live. You have the ability to shut down your video and your audio for this brief recess. But Jess, as our executive director and secretary, will get the appropriate people the appropriate access they need for closed session. So I think in an attempt to keep our technology resilient, I'd ask that all board members remain connected. And with that, I'll seek a second.
Second.
Thank you, Regent Delgado. At this time, Madam Clerk, please call the roll to move into closed session.
Regent President Peterson,
Yes.
Regent Vice President Grebe,
Yes.
Regent Atwell,